1 minute until showtime. Your show will go live in 5 seconds. 4, 3, 2, 1.
Insurrection, obstruction, indictments, civilly liable for sexual abuse. The one man responsible for all that could be sitting in a prison cell on election day and still be elected commander-in-chief for these United States. That man is beholden to Putin, weakened NATO the last time around, and is currently tying himself to wealthy Saudi oil money. He enriched himself when government stayed at his properties. He campaigned on wanting to use government to go after his political rivals and wants to expand executive power. If Donald Trump is reelected, our nation is lost. So let's roll up our sleeves, get to work, and tell the MAGA folks no more before it's too late.
Welcome back to Liberal Dan Radio, Talk from the Left. That's right. This is your host, Dan Zimmerman, coming at you from New Orleans, Louisiana. To join the conversation, it is area code 914-803-4131. That's 914-803-4131. And of course, you could always join us in the liberaldanradio.com chat room over on YouTube. Just go to liberaldanradio.com, which brings you to the YouTube channel. And then you can go to the live show page and join us in the chat that way. Or if you're watching on Twitch, you can go to twitch.tv/liberaldanradio and chat that way. If you happen to be listening on blogtalkradio.com, we don't monitor that chat. Three's the crowd, three's too many chats to get to take care of. Two's enough at the moment. Maybe if there was more, I don't know. I'm not monetized on Blog Talk Radio, so we don't follow that chat. So come on over to the other two if you want to chat that way. Excuse me, but we do use the chat rooms in the other two. We do allow the call-ins as well, 914-803-4131 to support the show. Please remember to subscribe to the channel, like the video, the live, comment and like on other videos that are out there. If you have Amazon Prime, you can subscribe for free over on Twitch. It doesn't cost you a dime. Otherwise, you can gift subscriptions, get your own subscriptions, buy bits. If you have Google Rewards, you can actually earn rewards by taking little surveys, and then you could use that to pay for your subscriptions and bits as well. Also, you can gifts, memberships, help other people be liberal danimals, or you can just be a liberal danimal yourself on YouTube for as little as $2 a month, and super chats, super stickers on top of that as well. You also have Buy Me a Cider. Go to liberaldan.com, click the Buy Me a Cider button, or just go to buymeacoffee.com/liberaldanradio. Venmo Liberal Dan as well. Just do friends and family. You're not buying anything. And be a patron, Liberal Dan Radio patron, as little as $5 a month can help you support the show. Shouts out to Nick Rich, Aaron and Jolie, the Mod Squad, Dakota Dave, Steve, who else is here? Nerd Misha is here, Surrender Monkey, John. Thank you, Nerd Misha, for gifting 5 Liberal Dan memberships. 5 more people are Liberal Danimals. Thanks for the kindness and generosity of Nerd Misha. Appreciate you a lot. So there you go. Thank you so much for that gift to the other Liberal Danimals. So we're close to getting 1,000. I think we're almost there. How much more do we need? That's not. I don't want to go to that channel. Hold on. I don't want to play another video and have it just go loud. Let's just turn that down a second just in case. Let's see. View your channel. What are we at? We're at 985. We need 15 more subscribers. Once we hit 15 more subscribers, we can get customized loyalty badges for you to be on for being a Liberal Danimal. And I will, as soon as I do that, as soon as I get that option, I will upload those custom badges ASAFP. So we got 16 viewers and 10 likes. Just remember to smash that like button before the patriarchy. Well, of course, Nerd Misha is remembered as nerd, because why wouldn't she? Because, you know, nerds are awesome. Nerds of the world unite. Anyway, so last week, I did talk about, we did have one Supreme Court ruling that came out, and then another one came out, and I was like, oh, we'll just talk about that on Monday, because it wasn't the Trump immunity one. We're still waiting on the Trump immunity one, and the Supreme Court is stalling so much on the Trump immunity one that they've added more stuff to the 2024-2025 docket. We have EMD sales versus Carrera. The justices agreed to decide what burden of proof applies to an employer arguing that it is exempt from the general requirement to pay employees overtime when they work over 40 hours a week. I'm sure this activist conservative Supreme Court will bend over backwards to help employers not have to pay overtime. But I could be wrong. You never know. We got Cuisis versus the United States, involving, among other things, whether the use of deception to bring about a commercial exchange can constitute mail or wire fraud, even if the scheme was not intended to inflict economic harm on an alleged victim. Nvidia Corp versus E. Oman J. or Fonder AB, whatever that means, involving the pleading standards to show knowledge or intent for securities fraud claims that rely on internal company documents. Wisconsin Bell versus United States XREL Health, involving whether reimbursement requests submitted to the FCC E-rate program are claims under the False Claims Act. Monday's addition of 4 cases to the docket brings the number of cases to 16, with only 2 conferences and the traditional cleanup conference after all the decisions have been released, remaining for this before the summer recess. So you have June 20th, which is the Thursday, and then you have, I guess, the cleanup conference for after all of, I guess, all the other things. So I guess, oh, nope. Well, I guess you didn't hear it because I had the volume off, so you didn't hear me inadvertently turning on the closing music already. So there's there. Anyway, so lots of stuff that we're still waiting on when it comes to the Supreme Court. I wonder what else we are waiting for when it comes to the October term. Trying to see, hold on. Just cases. We have cases. We need more cases. Let's see. SCOTUS cases left to be released. List of pending cases. October term 2023 cases. did it again. I did it again. Keep pushing the thing, but good thing y'all don't hear it. So we've got a bunch coming in, but we're still waiting on, let's see, October term 2024 cases. I guess these are the new ones. Trying to see which ones are remaining. Well, I mean, I think we got Trump left, and then here. Well, this is June 5th. Here we go. 2 days left to go. Here's an article. Here's the article that I'm looking for. We're waiting on Students for Fair Admission versus Harvard and Students for Fair Admission versus UNC issue our affirmative action programs at the University of North Carolina, which until the 50s did not admit black students, and Harvard, which is the model for the Supreme Court's 1978 decision. Two cases overlap because UNC is a state school, and even though Harvard is a private institution, it's still covered by federal anti-discrimination laws because it accepts federal money. The cases were argued last October, so we're waiting on that affirmative action case. Voting Rights Act cases. What else? Come on, scroll, scroll, scroll. Wait, this is an old one? That's last year. Never mind. That's not the case. That's not what I'm looking for. So up next for the Supreme Court. There we go. NPR, 7 days ago. We got abortion and gun cases. We've got Chevron deference and social media platforms are also on the docket. Less high profile, but more far reaching. Let's see. The current Supreme Court with the conservative supermajority, blah, 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 blah. Chevron deference, the doctrine adopted by the court 40 years ago, says if the meaning of a statute is ambiguous, courts should defer to the regulator's interpretation of the law. But the court might abandon that doctrine and say that it should go for the letter of the law. Social media platforms are also on the docket. And, of course, there's the Donald Trump case that we're waiting on as well. So, happy birthday, Steve. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to Steve. Happy birthday to you. And many more. Did I violate somebody's copyright there? Am I going to get a copyright flag for singing the happy birthday song? Who knows? What happened with Bicycle Mike? Took a big fall, got pretty hurt. Oh no! I hope you will feel better soon. Did you break anything, or bruise, or just sprain, or what's going on? Hope all is well though. Felt really hard, bruised organ. Still going to Elvis Costello and Daryl Hall tomorrow. Well, I mean, priorities, right? Aaron, no, the Happy Birthday song is public domain. Okay, good. No copyright flags for me, at least for this. Might be copyright flags when I do my next parody, which should be coming at some point soon. And hopefully at some point I'll make my parody. It's a long time coming, but it'll happen. Because if you have two, if there's two that I've done in this general Hamilton genre, then there needs to be a third if you know Hamilton. Pain is an illusion. Pain is not an option in this dojo. So, and it's funny. It's just Daryl Hall because of the whole split between Hall and Oates, right? Because there was that tiff or beef between Hall and Oates, right? Happy Anniversary is a Flintstones copyright. Interesting. But yes, thank you very much, Steve, for being a liberal danimal for 4 months. Appreciate you for that. Anyway, so can't do too long of a show today because I might have to go run out. My kids are going away for a week with their grandparents. Their grandparents are in town. I just came back from dinner. With them. And then I need to get them some stuff for the airplane, so either run out to Target or to Walmart. But I still wanted to cover some of those things for the podcast that I said I would cover. First and foremost, being the fact that we have the ruling pertaining to the Alliance for Hippocratic Medicine, the FDA versus the Alliance for Hippocratic Medicine. So let's flip on over to the alternate. Let's move things around so we don't not see them. Anyway, so here we go. This is the ruling from them. I don't know, is it visible to y'all? In 2000, the FDA approved a new drug application for Mifepristone tablets marketed under the blame Mifeprex in terminating pregnancies up to 7 weeks. To help ensure Mifeprex would be used safely and effectively, FDA placed additional restrictions on the drug's use and distribution, requiring doctors to prescribe or supervise prescription of the Mifeprex, requiring patients to have 3 in-person visits. In 2016, the FDA relaxed some of these restrictions, deeming Mifeprex safe to terminate pregnancies up to 10 weeks, allowing healthcare providers such as nurse practitioners to prescribe it, approving a dosing regimen that required just 1 in-person visit. In 2019, the FDA approved an application for generic Mifepristone. In 2021, it would no longer enforce the initial in-person visit requirement. 4 pro-life medical associations and several individual doctors moved for a preliminary injunction that would require the FDA either to rescind approval of Mifepristone or to rescind the FDA's 2016 and or 2021 regulatory actions. Danco Laboratories, which sponsors Mifeprex, intervened to defend the FDA's actions. The district court agreed with the plaintiffs and enjoined the FDA's approval, thereby ordering Mifepristone off the market. FDA and Danco appealed and moved to stay the district orders pending appeal. As relevant here, this court ultimately stayed the district court's order pending the disposition of proceedings of the Fifth Circuit and this court. On the merits, the Fifth Circuit held the plaintiffs had standing. It concluded the plaintiffs were unlikely to succeed on their challenges to the FDA's 2000 and 2019 drug approvals, but were likely to succeed in showing that FDA's 2016 and 2021 actions were unlawful. The court granted cert with respect to the 2016 and 2021 FDA actions, held the plaintiffs lack Article 3 standing to challenge the FDA actions regarding the regulation of Mifepristone. Article 3 standing is a, quote, bedrock constitutional requirement that this court has applied to all manner of important disputes. Standing is built on a single basic idea, the separation of powers. Article 3 confines the jurisdiction of federal courts to cases and controversies. Federal courts do not operate as an open forum for citizens to press general complaints about the way which government goes about its business. To obtain a judicial determination of what governing law is, a plaintiff must have a personal stake in the dispute. To establish standing, a plaintiff must demonstrate that she has likely suffered or likely will suffer an injury in fact, that the injury likely has caused or will be caused by the defendant, and the injury likely would be redressed by the requested judicial relief. See Summers versus Earth Island Institute. The 2 key questions in most standing disputes are injury in fact and causation. By requiring the plaintiff to show an injury in fact, Article 3 standing screens out plaintiffs who might have only a general legal, moral, ideological, or policy objection to a particular government action. Causation requires the plaintiff to establish that plaintiff's injury was caused or likely will be caused by the defendant's conduct. Causation is ordinarily substantially more difficult to establish. Plaintiffs are pro-life, oppose elective abortion, and have sincere legal, moral, and ideological and policy objections to Mifepristone being prescribed and used by others. Because plaintiffs do not prescribe or use Mifepristone, plaintiffs are unregulated parties who seek to challenge FDA regulation of others. Plaintiffs advance several complicated causation theories to connect FDA's actions to plaintiffs' alleged injuries in fact. None of these theories suffice to establish Article 3 standing. So that is probably in and of itself. Kavanaugh delivered the opinion for a unanimous court. Thomas filed a concurring opinion. So the fact that all 9 of them said, y'all crazy, y'all have no right to bring this lawsuit, your legal theories are absurd, go away, should be rather embarrassing to these political activists, the Alliance for Hippocratic Medicine, because they couldn't even get one of these extremist conservative activist hacks on the court to be like, you know what? I agree with you. They couldn't. They could not get that to happen. All of them agreed with Kavanaugh, who wrote the majority opinion. And because Kavanaugh wrote the majority opinion, I'm sure it's not poorly written. I mean, it might be poorly written, but it's not as poorly written as it would have been if it was an Alito one. But I'm shook that Alito didn't dissent, that Thomas didn't dissent. I'm shook that Thomas decided to write a full-on concurring opinion on top of Kavanaugh's opinion. I mean, Thomas does like to hear himself, I would say hear himself speak, but instead he likes to see himself right. So, wait, Mish, I feel snacky, or is the word snackish? Isn't it peckish? Would it peckish be the right word for that? So, let's scrolling on down, because we don't really need to read about the whole thing again, because in reality there's no dispute here on the part of the court. All the court's basically like, we agree with each other for the first time in forever. For the first time in forever, the court agreed with everyone. For the first time in forever. Except for the case involving guns. Sorry. I just want to kind of scroll down and see what old Clarence had to say. Because Clarence had to be a special snowflake and throw in his 2 cents over the whole thing. Here, let's go to the bottom and then scroll up. Scroll up. Come on, scroll. Of course, Thomas quotes. This is exactly what I figured would happen in the Thomas concurrence. In Thomas's concurrence, Thomas is going to cite Clarence Thomas. We should have a drinking. I would say we should have a drinking game in Clarence Thomas opinions to see how many times Clarence Thomas cites Clarence Thomas in his own concurrences or his own dissents even. Clarence Thomas will cite his own dissent in a dissent, or he'll cite his own dissents in concurrences. I join the court's opinion in full because it correctly applies our precedents to conclude that the Alliance for Hippocratic Medicine and other plaintiffs lack standing. Our precedents require a plaintiff to demonstrate that defendant's challenged actions caused his asserted injuries, and the court aptly explains why plaintiffs have failed to establish. The court also rejects the plaintiff's doctor's theory that they have third-party standing to assert the rights of their patients. Our third-party standing precedents allow plaintiffs to assert the right of another person when the plaintiff has a close relationship with the person who possesses the right, and there is a hindrance of the possessor's ability to protect his own interests. Applying these precedents, the court explains that the doctors cannot establish third-party standing to sue for violations for their patients' rights without showing an injury of their own, but there is a far simpler reason to reject this theory. What? Our third-party standing doctrine is mistaken. Well, there you go. As I have previously explained, a plaintiff cannot establish an Article III case for controversy by asserting another person's rights. See June Medical Services versus Russo, Thomas dissenting, Kowalski, Thomas concurring. Just as abortionists lack a standing to assert the rights of their clients, doctors who oppose abortion cannot vicariously assert the rights of their patients. I write separately to highlight what appear to be similar problems with another theory of standing asserted in this suit. The Alliance and other plaintiff associations claim that they have associational standing to sue for their members' injuries. Under the court's precedent, an association has standing to bring suit on behalf of its members when A, its members would otherwise have standing to sue in their own right, B, the interests it seeks to protect are germane to the organization's purpose, and C, neither the claim asserted nor relief requested requires the participation of individual members in the lawsuit. Blah, 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 blah. If an association can satisfy these requirements, we will allow association to pursue its members' claims without joining those members as parties to the suit. Associational standing, however, is simply another form of third-party standing, and the court has never explained or justified either doctrine's expansion of the Article 3 standing. In an appropriate case, we should explain just how Constitution permits associational standing. So basically, Clarence Thomas is basically like, I agree, but I'm going to use this platform to complain about something else. I'm going to use this platform as a way to get my words in writing. So one day maybe somebody might use my dissent, my arguments made in this concurrence or in previous dissents, to then make an argument in the future to then eliminate associational standing. So, okay, so that's what Thomas is doing here. He's just running his mouth to try and have his pet project be heard by anybody who would read these rulings. And he continues to cite himself here. Opinion of Justice Thomas, Justice Thomas concurring in judgment. Let's see however many times, if we can find any more. Opinion of Justice Thomas, opinion of Justice Thomas. I'm not seeing him citing anybody else's opinion. Oh, there he goes. He quotes Gorsuch here. He's like, there you go. There's at least one that he cited somebody other than himself. Here we go. Justice Thomas concurring. Justice Thomas concurring. He quotes. Maybe he just likes Gorsuch. There you go. Because I haven't seen anybody else yet. Maybe I'm jinxing it. Maybe there'll be somebody else who gets cited here as well. Scroll. Trying to find if any other rulings, if he's citing himself or anybody else or not. That's the end of it. No party challenges our associational standing doctrine today. That is understandable. The court consistently applies the doctrine, discussing only the finer points of its operation. In this suit, rejecting our associational standing doctrine is not necessary to conclude that the plaintiffs lack standing. In an appropriate case, however, the court should address whether associational standing can be squared with Article 3's requirement the courts respect the bounds of judicial power. Thank you, Nick Rich, for gifting a Liberal Dan membership. Yes, Dakota, everybody is now drunk. If there was the drinking age of taking a shot every time Clarence Thomas cited himself in one of his own opinions, everybody would be at least buzzed by this point, and this is a very short opinion. Dean Baker just coming in brought a pint of vodka. Well, wait, I don't know if Justice Thomas has a concurring opinion in the next ruling, so just you wait. Just you wait. Just you wait. Sorry, Hamilton on the mind. Because the other thing that we're going to talk about today, if briefly, is the asinine ruling that a Trump-era law banning bump stocks. It was banned after the Vegas shooting. A Trump-era law was overturned by this activist conservative Supreme Court, allowing bump stocks. So, if you don't know what a bump stock is, you should if you're paying attention, but, hey. So, difference between an automatic and a semi-automatic weapon, semi-automatic rifle, for example. So if I have a semi-automatic rifle, I have to squeeze the trigger, release the trigger, and then squeeze the trigger again on a semi-automatic rifle if I would like to fire multiple rounds. But if an automatic rifle, I can just suppress the trigger and it'll go and fire out many rounds. A bump stock surpasses this and uses basically the motion of the gun itself, so that every time it kind of the stock bumps, it depresses the trigger again, turning a semi-automatic rifle into an automatic rifle by default. And of course, people who wanted to see automatic weapons banned, and for some reason Donald Trump, they, I guess because it was shortly thereafter, the Vegas shooting, they got this bump stock ban passed. And the activist conservatives on the Supreme Court basically said, nope, sorry, this is not allowed. The National Firearms Act of 1934 defines a machine gun as any weapon which shoots, is designed to shoot, or can be readily restored to shoot automatically more than one shot without manual reloading by a single function of the trigger. With a machine gun, a shooter can fire multiple times, even continuously, by engaging the trigger only once, as I said. The capability distinguishes the machine gun from a semi-automatic firearm. With a semi-automatic firearm, the shooter can fire only one time by engaging the trigger, as I already explained. For many years, the ATF constantly took the position that semi-automatic rifles equipped with bump stocks were not machine guns. ATF abruptly changed course when a gunman using a semi-automatic rifle equipped with bump stocks fired hundreds of rounds into a crowd in Las Vegas, killing 58 people and wounding over 500 more. ATF proposed a rule that would repudiate its previous guidance and amend regulations to clarify that bump stocks are machine guns. Or I would probably say that bump stocks create machine guns. ATF's rule ordered owners of bump stocks to either destroy or surrender them to avoid criminal prosecution. Michael Cargill surrendered 2 bump stocks to ATF under protest, then filed suit to challenge the rule under Administrative Procedure Act. As relevant, Cargill alleged that ATF lacked the statutory authority to promulgate the rule because bump stocks are not machine guns as defined in 584(5)(b). After a bench trial, the district court entered a judgment for the ATF. The Fifth Circuit initially affirmed, but reversed after hearing en banc. The majority agreed that 5845B is ambiguous as to whether a semi-automatic rifle equipped with a bump stock fits the statutory definition of a machine gun, and resolved that ambiguity in Cargill's favor. Held ATF exceeded its statutory authority by issuing a rule that classified a bump stock as a machine gun. So let's look up 585B to see how it's worded. We'll come back over here for a second. What's up, Hugger Greeter TK? Good to see you, Teresa. Dean Baker, I prefer weed, but my lungs aren't good enough to puff. That's why you gotta have gummies, right? See. All right. So here we go. Back to here. Machine gun. The term machine gun. Got a machine gun. It's blocked by my Liberal Dan Venmo thing. Term machine gun means any weapon which shoots is designed to shoot or conveniently restored to shoot automatically more than one shot without manual loading by single function of the trigger. Term also shall include the frame or receiver of any such weapon, any part designed and intended solely or exclusively, or combination of parts designed and intended to use in converting any weapon into a machine gun, and any combination of parts from which a machine gun can be assembled if such parts are in possession or under control of a person. That doesn't sound vague to me. That sounds pretty clear that if you have a combination of parts designed or intended for use in converting a weapon into a machine gun, and that's what a bump stock is, a bump stock converts a semi-automatic rifle into a machine gun, then that would basically fit the definition of a bump stock as a machine gun, or as making it illegal as a machine gun. Seems reasonable to me. But of course, this activist conservative Supreme Court is going to be all like, nope, we're activist conservatives. We're not gonna allow that. We're gonna go ahead and we're gonna be our activist conservative selves. Let's continue. A semi-automatic rifle equipped with a bump stock is not a machine gun as defined by this because it cannot fire more than one shot by a single function of the trigger, and even if it could, it cannot do so automatically, but it does. And that's what happened. ATF therefore exceeded statutory authority. B, a semi-automatic rifle equipped with a bump stock does not fire more than one shot by a single function of the trigger. The phrase function of the trigger refers to the mode of action by which the trigger activates the firing mechanism. No one disputes that a semi-automatic rifle without a bump stock is not a machine gun because the shooter must release and reset. Any subsequent shot fired is a result of a separate and distinct function of the trigger. Nothing changes when a semi-automatic rifle is equipped with a bump stock. Between every shot, the shooter must release the pressure from the trigger and allow it to be reset before re-engaging. A bump stock merely reduces the amount of time that elapses between the separate functions allowed to trigger, to the point where it becomes de facto machine gun. ATF argues that a shooter uses a bump stock must pull the trigger only one time to initiate a bump firing sequence of multiple shots. Right. This initial trigger pull sets off a sequent fire, recall bump fire, that allows the weapon to continue firing without additional physical manipulation of the trigger by the shooter. This argument rests on the mistaken premise that there is a difference between the shooter flexing its finger to pull the trigger and pushing the firearm towards the bump and the trigger against its stationary trigger. Moreover, ATF's position is logically inconsistent. Why? Well, we'll see why. Because its reasoning would also mean that a semi-automatic rifle without a bump stock is capable of firing more than one shot by a single function of a trigger, yet ATF agrees that is not the case. ATF's argument is thus at odds with itself. No, because you have an item that's turning it into an automatic weapon. Dumbass. Hair. Have a hair on my mouth. Excuse me. All the cat hair around here. C. Even if a semi-automatic rifle with a bump stock could fire more than one shot by a single function of the trigger, it would not do so automatically. 584.5b specifies the precise action that must automatically cause the weapon to fire more than one shot, a single function of the trigger. Such pedants. Although they're not this pedant, their pedantry does not exist when it comes to things like, the 9th Amendment, or even the 10th Amendment. Abandoning the text, ATF attempts to shore up his position by relying on the presumption against ineffectiveness. That presumption weighs against interpretation of a statute would render the law in great measure nugatory. They would have nougat, so that it would turn it into candy. What? ATF's view, Congress restricted machine guns because they eliminate the manual movements that a shooter would otherwise have to make in order to fire continuously at a high rate of fire, as bump stocks do. Brief for petitioners 40. So ATF reasons concluding that bump stocks are lawful simply because the trigger moves back and forth would exalt artifice above reality and enable evasion of federal machine gun ban. Exactly! That's exactly what they do. The presumption against ineffectiveness cannot do the work that ATF asks of its interpreting 585B to exclude semi-automatic. Oh, that's right. Thomas was the opinion of the court. Oh, Lord. I'm sorry, y'all. Y'all are about to get, completely fit-chased if you're taking shots every time Justice Thomas cites himself in the majority opinion. Holy crap. Of course, Alito filed a concurring opinion. You might have to read the Alito concurring opinion just to see how dumb it is. Justice Thomas delivered the opinion of the court. Congress has long restricted access to machine guns, a category of firearms defined by ability to shoot automatically more than one shot, a single function of the trigger. Blah, 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 the National Firearms Act, and machine gun as a weapon. I think they're going to be just constantly repeating the... How often is he going to kick the dead horse, too? That's what I want to know. With machine gun, a shooter can fire multiple times. This capable of distinguishing machine gun from semi-automatic. Blah, blah, blah. Shooters, blah, blah, blah. Bump firing is a balancing act. The shooter must maintain enough forward pressure to ensure that he will bump the trigger with sufficient force to engage it, but if the shooter applies too much forward pressure, the rifle will not slide back far enough to allow the trigger to reset. The right balance. He must bring balance to the force on the trigger. So you have Anakin Skywalker and Luke Skywalker and Darth Vader and whatever. Although bump firing does not require any additional equipment, there are accessories designed to make the technique easier. A bump stock is one such accessory. It replaces a semi-automatic rifle stock, the back part of the rifle, that rests against the shooter's shoulder with a plastic casing that allows every other part of the rifle to slide back and forth. Thus, this casing helps manage the back and forth motion required for bump firing. A bump stock also has a ledge to keep the shooter's trigger finger stationary. A bump stock does not alter the basic mechanics of the bump firing. With any semi-automatic firearm, the trigger will still be released and re-engaged to fire each additional shot. The question for this case is whether a bump stock transforms a semi-automatic rifle into a machine gun. For many years, the ATF said no, and then, of course, it said yes, because you're beating the dead horse that you said earlier, blah, blah, blah. They talk about the murders that took place in Nevada and Las Vegas, blah, blah, blah. Lots of dead people that doesn't make Justice Thomas think anything more about this ruling. That doesn't affect him at all. Michael Cargill surrendered his stuff and then brought a suit because so we granted cert to address the split among the court's appeals regarding whether bump stocks meet the definition of machine gun. We now affirm Section 5845 defines a machine gun as any weapon capable of firing automatically. Semi-automatic rifle equipped with bump stock does not fire more than one shot by a single function of the trigger. More shooting of the dead horse without a bump stock. They probably would need a bump stock for the amount of times the dead horse is probably going to get shot in this ruling. So that's why we're gonna bypass all of the function of the trigger art. Oh, we got drawings and stuff in here. Wow. We got illustrations and everything. Figure 1, trigger, disconnector, hammer. Jojo Mojo, that bump stock band lift is insane. It's not like the block clips for Glocks isn't bad enough. Pretty much. Just keep that crap on a range, not at home. Makes sense to me. Well, if they could do that, sure, but people don't do that. Somebody brought that crap to the concert and killed a whole bunch of people. Ooh, we got figure 2. Justice Thomas is coming with, like, you know, diagrams and stuff. I'm mildly impressed that he's bringing diagrams. Not impressed with his opinion, but I'm impressed that he's bringing diagrams to compare and contrast, to make his case. More diagrams, more drawings. But he hasn't cited himself yet, which is, you know, amusing. Oh, wait. The dissent offers similar reasoning, opinion of Sotomayor. Okay, it's just citing the dissent at this point. In any event, ATF's argument cannot succeed on its own terms. The final rule defines function of the trigger to not only a single pull of the trigger, but also any analogous motions. ATF concedes that one such analogous motion that qualifies as a single function is sliding the rifle forward to bump the trigger, blah, blah, blah. Then he'll explain why he thinks that they're wrong. The problem with allowing Justice Thomas to write this ruling is that even if he doesn't cite himself at all in the main ruling, he now has a big ruling that he can cite himself on in the future for other rulings, and that's just not a good idea. A bump stock is not a machine gun for other reasons. Even if semi-automatic rifle, the bump stock could fire more than one shot by a single function of the trigger, it would not do so on. We already discussed that. You already said that before. Why are you beating the dead horse? Simply pressing, blah, blah, blah. Moreover, semi-automatic rifle with bump stock is indistinguishable from another weapon that ATF concedes cannot fire multiple shots automatically. The Ithaca Model 37 shotgun. Model 37 allows the user to slam fire, that is, fire multiple shots by holding down the trigger while operating the shotgun's pump action. Each pump ejects the shotgun and loads a new one into the chamber. If the shooter is holding down the trigger, the new cartridge will fire as soon as it's loaded. According to the ATF, the Model 37 fires more than one shot by a single function of the trigger, but it does so not do so automatically because the shooter must manually operate the pump. Well, that's why it's different, dummy! Because you're literally pumping the shotgun back and forth. Not is what happening with the bump stock, where it's the motion of the gun that's doing it. Like, how did he become a lawyer? I should have become an attorney. If it's this easy to be an attorney, I should have become an attorney. Nick Rich, yes, an Uzi is a machine gun, yes. Abandoning the text, ATF and the dissent attempt to shore up their position by relying on the presumption against ineffectiveness. The presumption weighs against interpretations that a statute would render the law in great measure nugatory. Again, more nougat. Oh, he cites Scalia first. Wow. Presumption against ineffectiveness cannot do the work the ATF and dissent ask of it. They already said that before, earlier. Like, why are you repeating yourself? Dissent's additional argument applying for the presumption of against ineffectiveness fails on its own terms to argue that our interpretation makes far less effective. The dissent highlights that a shooter with a bump stock equipped rifle can achieve a rate of fire that rivals traditional machine guns, but the dissent elsewhere acknowledges that a shooter can do the same with an unmodified semi-automatic rifle using the manual bump firing technique. The dissent thus fires to prove that our reading makes it far less effective, blah, blah, blah. For the foregoing reasons, they affirm the judgment of the Court of Appeals. It is so ordered. Alito concurring. This is what I want to see. I want to see Alito's... I joined the opinion of the court because there is no other way to read the statutory language. There can be little doubt that... Well, I mean, you could go to the language and say, any part designed and intended solely and exclusively or combination of parts designed and intended for use in converting a weapon into a machine gun, which is what the bump stock is supposed to do. It converts an automatic into a machine gun by default, de facto machine gun. Even if it's not officially one, it still turns it into one. The horrible shooting spree in Las Vegas did not change the statutory text or the meaning. That event demonstrated that a semi-automatic rifle with a bump stock can have the same lethal effect as a machine gun, and it thus strengthened the case for amending 584B, but an event that highlights the need to amend a law does not itself change the law's meaning. Well, unless you could look at the law and see that it actually turns it into a machine gun because, you only have to push the trigger once, and then it does the rest by itself. Dummy. So that's all Alito's dissent is just this little block of text? Well, all right then. Now the situation is clear, Congress can act. The Hill. Schumer calls for bill to ban bump stocks after Supreme Court ruling. Supreme Court Majority Leader Chuck Schumer on Friday condemned a 6-3 Supreme Court ruling. Far as the Supreme Court continues their unprecedented assault by public safety by reversing common sense guidance by the ATF. So here's what happened. The ATF did it. There wasn't a rule that was passed during Donald Trump's time in president. It wasn't a law. It was a rule that was or a regulation that was given by ATF. So now Schumer is going to be as I warned President Trump at the time, the only way to permanently close the loophole is through legislation. Senate Democrats are ready to pass legislation to ban bump stocks, but we will need votes from Senate Republicans. Trump administration banned bump stocks through executive action after the 2017 mass shootings at the Route 91 Harvest Music Festival in Las Vegas, where a shooter used the device and killed nearly 60 people, making the deadliest shooting in U.S. history. A 6-3 conservative majority in the Supreme Court ruled Friday that the ATF had exceeded its authority. Thomas found that the agency could not do what we just already said he would. Even if one aspect of the weapons operation could be seen as automatic, it would not mean the weapon shoots automatically. So stupid. But anyway, so now Chuck Schumer is in fact calling for a law to be passed to actually ban bump stocks instead of, just having it be the regulation that the ATF did that the Supreme Court just overturned. So what will the Republicans do? The Republicans say, yes, let's go ahead and do some common sense legislation and ban bump stocks, or will the Republicans just stand up and be like, nope, we don't care about people's lives. We don't care about the fact that, they probably want to flip it back around and say, let's just allow machine guns. Ichabod, the discussion is pointless because the Constitution says well-regulated militia. Well, yeah, but, it's the job of Congress to regulate the militia, and we need a Congress that will act to regulate it. And they're not, because we have too many Republicans in the Congress. Yeah, Pelosi was the leader in the House when Trump did it, but was it in 2018? When did it actually go through? Was it 2018? So they probably could have tried to pass the law, but did they have enough conservatives in the Senate to block it? That's the other thing. I don't know. Is it up for the states to regulate the militia? I mean, if well-regulated militia is mentioned in the Second Amendment, then doesn't that grant the authority to the federal government, not the states? Yeah, SCOTUS just signed the warrants of thousands of innocent people. Pretty much. So Big Hug. All of this is last week's news. The question is, what's the motive of the ruling by the court? It's a payoff. It's to arm the maggots with the most lethal weapon of war available to the public. Well, that's part of it. I mean, you have Clarence Thomas and Alito, who are the elder shitheads on the court, who are going to, constantly back up ridiculousness. But they're also going to kiss the asses of the militias whose flag they fly or whose leaders they're paid by. Like Thomas gets paid by lots of vacations by what's-his-face. Let's see. Jeff Curry, I'll turn my truck into a tank. Supreme Court will have to say it's still technically a truck. Possibly. That's quite possible that you might have an argument. It's still a truck. Just because I changed how the truck operates doesn't mean it's not a truck, right? I guess they would probably find some way to nitpick it to make it be like, well, this law said it this way, so therefore they do have the authority to regulate it in such a way so that you can't have your truck, blah, 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 but that you could still have your gun, blah, blah, blah. But we're just so obsessed with gun nuttery in this country. And I'm not even against law-abiding citizens owning guns. I just want there to be some common sense. Well, there's no such thing as common sense anymore. I just want people to have some sense about it. I want people to, I want background checks. I want universal, 100%, anytime a gun transfers ownership from one person to another, regardless of how that ownership takes place, be it a gun being transferred via like a succession, via a death in the family, a private gun sale, a gun sale via the gun show, a pawn shop, a gun store, whatever. However you're getting a gift, if a gun is trading hands from one person to another, there should always be a background check to make sure that the recipient of the gun has the right to carry it, and that shouldn't be controversial. The problem with this, of course, comes with the idea of, while 80% of the country believes in background checks, because if you poll them individually, you will say, yes, we should have background checks. Not enough people are willing to say, if you don't require background checks, I'm not going to vote for you, Republican. Not enough people are willing to stand up and say, I'm going to vote against my own party if they don't do the right things on these pieces of legislation. They'll stand up and say, I support background checks, but they won't support it enough to put the fear of not getting reelected into the hearts and minds of Republican politicians who know they can get away with voting however they want to on the issue, because they know these Republicans who are part of that 80% majority are not going to do squat and vote the other way, because they know that, the team sport of politics is more worth it to them than saving lives. So 56 guns or so last century. And Josh, most gun owners have multiple guns. That's probably true as well. Project 2025 is going to need an army of useful idiots to enforce their turn to fascist rule. And here's the other thing. I was thinking about this today. Should we be calling... it's called Project 2025 because that's probably a nice, tame way to refer about it. Just like they call the Patriot Act the Patriot Act. If you don't support it, you're not a patriot, right? Well, Project 2025. It's tame. It's just a year, right? It's just a year. Nobody cares about it. That's our plans for this year. We should be calling it the Handmaid's Tale Project or something like that. Project Gilead. We should be labeling it as something that has much more oomph than just calling it Project. Even though it's called Project 2025, we should be calling it like Project Gilead, Project Handmaid's Tale, Project We're Coming After Your Rights, or something like that. Suzanne, sorry you're late. Had to secure my place, expecting a lot of rain and wind. Well, I hope you remain safe. Thank you for coming. Of course, today's shows might be shorter than normal because I have to go run and do an errand for my children. So, because my kids are leaving at the crack of dawn tomorrow, maybe even before the crack of dawn, and I need to make sure that they have whatever they need for the plane ride on their way with their grandparents. So, it poured down right earlier today too. They did indoor activities with their grandparents today because they weren't able to go swimming. Project No Soup for You. No soup for you. Project Soup Nazi and Nazi for the rest of them as well. As Hal said, I'm already a second-class citizen because you are a woman. Well, yeah, I've been saying that for a while too. I mean, you got women, you got black people, you've got Jews. You know, lots of people are already second-class citizens, one step away from any crap hitting the fan and making a whole bunch of people no longer enfranchised in this country. Project Felon 45, nice. Impeccable Living, I have a grinder date on his way over, so I have to go. Thank you for a lovely time. Brown chicken, brown cow. Go get you some. Far be it from me to stand in the way of anybody getting laid. But yes, respect women, 100%. Let's just scroll back, see anything if I've missed in the chat. Impeccable Living, why are Republicans pro-death? Because they're none of them are really pro-life. Because they're just pro-control. They just want to control you. If they can control you via forced pregnancies, they'll control you via forced pregnancies. If they can control you via guns, shooting you, they'll control you via shooting you. They will control you in all of the ways possible that they can find to control you. So... do. 56 Nick Rich though says an Uzi uses low caliber rounds like 22. It's basic. Some bump stocks are for armor piercing rounds. That's also a good point. I mean, at least with Alito's little tiny little thing was basically like, you know, just as a hint. I mean, Alito's kind of thing was kind of like, you know, hey, Congress, if you don't like it, pass the law. Well, no shit. That's what they had to do with the Lilly Ledbetter Fair Pay Act, because the Lilly Ledbetter Fair Pay Act basically said that people had to be psychic in order for them to bring a lawsuit pertaining to wage discrimination. And who wrote the Lilly Ledbetter Fair Pay Act? Oh, it was Alito. That dumbass. So yes, we understand, Justice Alito, what you have to do when the Supreme Court comes in and gives a bad interpretation of law, because they can't interpret a law a certain way because of the way the law is written. All you have to do is then change the law, rewrite the law in such a way so it's more clear to the idiots at the Supreme Court, so then they have to find another way to be activists. I guess one more thing real quick before we finish up. Let's see. Let's open this up real quick. I have 2 days left with this. So we're going to add this on. Oh, hold on. Let's do this again. Copy. Paste. There we go. Copy, paste. Or just paste again, I should say. I'm still doing this game. There's 2 days. You can play it and help out the show. You could probably at least get to level 12 for free, and help the show a little bit. If you do buy some things in the game, I think that's the only way to get the gold shards. If you open 2 gold shards, it gets the show 30 extra bucks. If you open 2 purple shards, it gets the show an extra 25 bucks. Opening 20 blue shards, I haven't quite figured out how to get 20 blue shards in 15 days, let alone 2. But you can get to level 2 and level 12 in quickly, and that'll get me additional money and support. I may be streaming. I'll stream it some tomorrow because there's something I can do to help get the show another 50 bucks for the clan quest. Let's see. Am I using a new camera? No, I'm not. This is the same camera as before. I don't know what is making me look so crisp, so fresh, so clean. I don't know what it might be. Maybe maybe I'm getting a good signal and therefore I'm not having as much pixelation as going on. I don't know, but it's the same camera that I've been using for the last few years, at least. So there's that. My audio is also, well, the audio is perfect too because I use a podcast mic. My audio used to be crap because I used to first use the microphone from the camera, and that was terrible. And then I had a different type of mic, and I invested about $100 into getting a good podcast mic. So that's why the podcast audio is better. So, and of course, I like to use my sometimes radio voice, and that helps to make the audio better as well, right? We only see a small Dan on screen with a big background. You don't need to see you see a big Dan everywhere else. You don't need to see a big Dan on screen. Although I'm playing around with the idea of soon changing around everything in the background. We'll see, make it more election related for July and beyond. We'll see what happens. But let's see, Big Hook. As Tom Hartman said, it's not the end, but it's just the beginning. They will ban abortion, condoms, no-fault divorce. So women are trapped in abusive marriages. Gay marriage will be next, interracial. Well, if you read, if you were with me as we went over the Dobbs v. Jackson dissent, specifically the ruling, specifically the Justice Thomas concurrence, he let the cat out of the bag. He said the quiet part out loud. He basically showed why all of the rulings pertaining to individual rights and privacy are up on the chopping block. All of the rulings pertaining to contraception are at risk. Griswold v. Connecticut, the first one, but multiple ones exist that allowed, because Griswold was just about married couples. Then you had individuals. Then you had teens. Their abilities to use contraception, those are up, under threat. Lawrence v. Texas, the ban on, or the one that overturned the ban on gay sex. Loving versus Virginia was founded on the same sort of ideas that all these other ones were that Obergefell v. Hodges was founded on. So if Obergefell v. Hodges is at risk, then Loving versus Virginia is at risk, and therefore Clarence Thomas might be able to get out of his marriage to old Ginny. Maybe that's what he's hoping for. Maybe Clarence Thomas is like, hey, I can use this my job in the Supreme Court to annul my marriage to my wife, and then I won't have to pay her anything. I had a fat man rant kind of recently, though. Nick, I think I had a fat man rant rather recently. It was live, too. So Suzanne, show your cats. Rose had come in here for a second. I thought she was going to jump up and join me, but she went back out again. So unfortunately, no Rose today. But Did I get a haircut? I haven't had my hair cut since beginning of May, because I got my hair cut right before my mother-in-law's funeral mass or what have you. So it hasn't been cut since then. Although I did switch from I did trim down I let myself get a little scruffy, and then I went down to a trimmed beard instead of a goatee. Maybe that's what's looking different. I don't know. Ooh, it's very much pouring out there. I don't know if I'm going to be able to go to the freaking... I might have to wait for the rain to stop before the store, before I head on out to the store. Rose had a meeting with the nap or the food ball or one of her other sisters or kitty sisters. Lots of things that are possible. That's Rose might... Or Roach. Rose likes to find roaches and bring them to bed. That's always fun when there's a roach crawling on you because Rose found a roach and then brings it to you. Look, Daddy and Mommy, I found something for you. It's a gift. Anyway. Surrender Monkey, they say they dislike Muslim teachings but are trying their best to be worse than the Taliban, it seems like. Well, yeah, the Christian right is the American Taliban. It's as simple as that. They want to use government authority to push religion and religious beliefs on other people. So, it is what it is. I haven't, let me see if nobody is currently trying to call. I don't know if Khalil was trying to call or not, whilst I had the screen open on something else. So, Vanilla ISIS, Meal Team 6, all the other good names for the terrorist militias that are out there. The militias that are malicious. But anyway, I do need to... Tonight's show, I think Wednesday's show is also going to be short. I may have something I have to do Wednesday night as well. But I might make up for it. Thursday night, it may very well be possible that I... If the Supreme Court comes out with the ruling that it should be coming out with about Trump's immunity, and if it comes out stupid, I may very well do a later show on Thursday. We'll see. A gravy meal team sticks, yes. But yeah, so it's possible we might get a third show this week. We'll see. We'll see what the Supreme Court does and when they do it by. Until then, there's always tomorrow, nerdydan.com on Twitch, twitch.tv/nerdydan.com, and then I'll be back Wednesday for probably another just hour-long show. And then we'll make it up next week as well. Do some more shows next week as well. I'm going to try and get Amber Rose Petrovich to come on as a guest once she gets her situation set back up with her content that she's going to be creating. We're going to try and get Mandy Landry on the show to do a coverage of the legislative session and how Jeff Landry tried to screw over the state of Louisiana, even though Jeff Landry actually said that he's going to make, he's going to call people off and make an official state holiday for Juneteenth. So anyway, until next time I see you, either Tuesday or Wednesday, this is Dan Zimmerman with Liberal Dan Radio. Talk from the left. That's right.